a digital world. Every moment can be recorded, captured, and replayed instantly. We tend to live lives where we're the star, the main actor. We're in every scene, have every line. We're the narrator, the protagonist, and the victim. We live completely centered on me. What if we changed our thinking? What if life was about more than me?
Well, good morning, friends. Isn't it good to be friends? It's not a joke. This morning, I would like to begin by taking a trip with you, by taking a journey back into time, into a simpler time. A time when the hair was big and the shorts were short for men and women. A time when the music was loud and we had guitar gods. The magical time I'm referring to is 1985. Yes. So a few of you remember this year. Some of you, it's a good time to relive the glory days right now. You can share amongst yourselves later what 1985 meant to you. I was at a concert last night, the Live Fest deal down in Fairhaven, and there was this cover band, like the last band there, that was just playing all these 80s hits. It was hilarious for me. Anyways, side note there. So, in 1985, I was 2 years old. So I don't remember it terribly well. But I was 2 years old. My family was living in Daytona Beach, Florida, which was the heart of spring break in the 80s, if you remember this. And I didn't get to enjoy that either. I was 2 years old. My family, we lived in Daytona, and we had moved into a brand new house. My dad had built this house, had crafted it the exact way for our family that he wanted it to be. And so everything was brand new. I mean, we're talking brand new cabinets, brand new carpets, bright white carpets. You know where this is going. So I am doing what any 2-year-old should be doing to christen the house. I am upstairs. I am in the bathroom doing what I do best. And my brother is supposed to be watching me to make sure that I'm okay. He's supposed to be making sure that everything's okay. He is not upstairs in the bathroom with me. He is downstairs in the family room, not watching me, but watching a fantastic episode of Rescue 911. So who could blame him, right? So he's downstairs watching that. I'm upstairs by myself. Now, I get done with what I'm doing, and I reach over to get some toilet paper at this point. Now, in this new house, the wall is slightly further away than it was in the other house. And so I kind of reach over, and then there's another problem, that there's this toilet paper holder that is porcelain, and it is broken on the corner. And it makes it very sharp. And so I start to reach over to get toilet paper, and I start to fall, start to slide, start to tumble. Soon my body is hurling towards the ground, 9.8 meters per second. I am going too fast, and I'm worried. I'm very scared. I'm falling very fast, and my nose, my one and only nose, the only nose that I'll ever have in this life, that nose gets caught on the toilet paper holder and ripped right in half. Why are some of us laughing about this? And so I am laying on the ground now in a pool of blood and possibly urine, because I was quite frightened. And so I'm laying there on the ground. My parents rush to the scene. My dad's the first one on the scene. He runs up, and he's pretty ticked off because I've now stained the white carpet. My mom, he's a very compassionate man. My mom runs up, and she is one of those people, you may know people like this, where as they get louder, their voice gets higher pitched, and it gets louder and higher pitched, louder, higher pitched. You may know people like this. They're called mothers. And the voice gets louder, higher pitched, right? And soon it just builds on itself, and soon there's this supersonic frequency covering Daytona Beach, Florida, and dogs are chasing each other and running at our house. And I'm just laying there in my pool of blood and urine, and my brother is still downstairs watching Rescue 911. My parents decide to put me in the station wagon, and so they put me on a towel. It's like a stretcher, because my dad didn't want to get blood anywhere else on the floor. So I'm on this towel as a stretcher. Again, my parents love me very much, and so I'm being toted down the stairs into the station wagon. My brother stays behind, tries to hide the shame, and drowns his sorrows in an episode of Cops. I go to the hospital. They put 17 stitches in my little nose just to hold it back together. I don't smell anything for months. Now, here's the thing about this story. I don't remember any of that. I don't remember a bit of this story. I was 2 years old. I don't remember any of these things that happened, any of the events that transpired. Here's why I know the graphic details of this story. here's what makes these come to mind, is that I grew up in what I call the era of the camera. Now, some of you guys know what I'm talking about. When you were young, especially my generation, video cameras were becoming more and more used at home. They were more affordable, smaller. You could start to use them in your own house, which is a great thing because before the video camera invention, parents were like, how will I blackmail my children when they get older? Fortunately, we found a way. And every still camera was getting smaller and smaller, and soon they could fit into every fanny pack. Praise God for the fanny pack. Right? Yeah. We have some fans of fanny packs here. So, I mean, everything was getting smaller and more unproductive. And from the time that I was very young, when I was a very young child, I started to realize and really start to think in my own life that there was a video, there was a movie being made, and that I was the main character. Because there was a camera in my face all the time. Again, people that grew up in my generation and younger, you start to see this more and more. The cameras are everywhere. And this type of mentality didn't end there, right? And I don't think I'm the only one who's thought this way. Have any of you ever, just be honest with yourselves, have any of you ever been like maybe in a car or at a concert or something, and you hear a song, and maybe you've uttered the words or maybe you've thought the words, if my life were a movie, this would be my theme song, or this would be on the soundtrack. Anybody ever done that? It's okay to be honest here. Yes, mine would be a song called Baby 'Cause I'm a Thug. Or Hey Soul Sister, one of the two. Yeah, they're similar songs. So this would be my song. But I think we've all been there. We all live in this world where we think that there's a movie being made of us and that we're the main characters. We all pose for pictures that aren't being taken. And it didn't end there. That wasn't the end of this type of thing, right? This moved into a thing called YouTube. Remember when we used to be a productive society and then we made this thing called YouTube? And some of you have seen this, hopefully, where you can now broadcast yourself. You can put whatever you want onto this thing on the interweb, and then other people can watch it. Isn't this wonderful? Yeah. There's one video in particular that I want to show you, and this one, some of you may have seen it. It makes me laugh so hard still, and I've seen it like 1,000,000 times, and I still watch it. And so just enjoy this. Just take this in. This is a video called Shane Sings 5 Octaves on the Piano.
Hello everybody, it's me, Shane Lee. I'm going to sing 5 octaves on the piano. And now singing 5 octaves on the piano.
Oh, that never gets old. I mean, seriously, what is going on? My favorite, did you notice there's one where he actually goes back down a notch? That's my favorite. He's trucking on up and then oh, I love the end where he's like, that was Shane singing 5 octaves on the piano. He just threw it down. There, you got it. Oh, what were we talking about? So, YouTube. So So, I mean, you may be familiar with this phenomena. This is something that, I mean, YouTube, now we can go on, we can video ourselves anywhere with anything that we have to say. And you can go on and you can watch some 12-year-old give his expert review of Return of the Jedi. Or like Shane singing 5 octaves. Or, you know, a dance that I choreographed in my basement to Enrique Iglesias songs or something. Like, you can watch this now, and people are like, everybody wants to see my movie, right? I should upload it because everybody wants to see me more. Right? I'm the main character of some film, and everybody needs to be watching this. And this led to another thing called reality television. Aren't you glad for that? And now we've got reality TV. We've got things like The Apprentice, The Celebrity Apprentice, the Celebrity Apprentice. I'm not sure if some of those people qualify. Or like Dancing with the Stars. Or there was a Fox version called Skating with Celebrities. Anybody watch that? Me neither. So we have now reality television. We now have, and the goal of this is what? To bring people along, bring people who were not celebrities into celebritydom, celebrityhood. We're making celebrities out of regular people because that's the goal. Because now everybody should be on television. Everybody should be on a screen because you have a movie that's very important and your show should be made. And everybody wants to watch your movie. You're the main character, right? And we've been trained this way. This is the way our society goes, and cameras are getting smaller and smaller. I mean, every phone has one, every laptop has one. So you can upload wherever you're at so that everybody can see you and your feature film. Right? There was actually a study done on teenagers recently by the Barna Group. And we're buying into this lifestyle so much that they polled teenagers and they asked them, what are your career aspirations? What do you want to do for a living when you get older? And teenagers said, 26% of them, 1 out of every 4 teenagers said that when they're 25, by the time they're 25, they expect to be famous. 1 out of every 4 teenagers expects to be famous by the time they're 25. And this nullifies the need for them to have a real job or have a real career or be a regular citizen. Because now I'm a celebrity, I do something different. 1 out of every 4 teenagers believes that, and that's the world we've created. Where you're on camera, your story is all that matters. You are the main character, and you're the only person that's going to matter in this story. And we're going to make whatever needs we need to for you to get famous. I mean, you can get famous now on YouTube. You can have your band on MySpace. You can get famous via things like Celebrity Apprentice. I mean, you can be on these things, right? And that's the world we've created. And the danger of this that I've found with me thinking that I am the main character of my movie is that I find every relationship that I am in is a self-serving relationship. Everybody else is just a supporting actor, and that's all they're there for. They are a supporting actor. They are an extra in my movie because this is about me. They become the Ethel to my Lucy. They become the Screech to my Zach Morris. Right? They become the Ethel to my Lucy. For those of you that have seen I Love Lucy, you know Vivian Vance, who played Ethel, the neighbor gal in I Love Lucy. And Ethel, like I said, Vivian Vance played her. And in her contract, some of you may know this, but Vivian Vance was contractually obligated to at all times be at least 15 pounds heavier than Lucille Ball. She had to maintain 15 pounds heavier than Lucille Ball. Now, why is that? She's a supporting actor. She is there to make Lucille Ball look better, feel better. And that's what every relationship became for me. Every relationship became a series of people who could make me look or feel better about myself. And that's all they were there for. Because this movie is about me, and you're just a supporting character. Maybe some of you have seen this movie, The Truman Show. Anybody seen this movie? The Truman Show with Jim Carrey. And it's a great film. It really is very intelligent. It's hard to take it too seriously because Jim Carrey is the main role. But it's a really good film. And if you watch it, you realize that the Truman, Jim Carrey, is the main character of this film. He is the main character. This show revolves around him, right? And so you've got him as the main role. And he's in every episode. And all the other people in this town are actors, are supporting actors to Truman. That's what they exist for, is to support Truman, make him look better, make him feel better. That's what they're there for, right? And the tragedy of the show is when you realize at the end, as Truman starts to leave the set, that Truman starts to realize that every single interaction he'd had to this point was fake. That every interaction he'd had was synthetic, that it was artificial, that he had never had a single real interaction with a single real person. because he was the star. This gets dangerous. There's another guy. His name's Carl Rabbiter. Maybe you've heard of him. He had a similar story. Carl Rabbiter is a multimillionaire who lives in the Austrian Alps. He was worth about $4 million, and he decided that he was literally giving away every penny of his fortune. He said, in his own words, his goal is to have a bank account that reads zero. He's giving away every penny. He's actually selling off his house in the Austrian Alps via lottery. He's actually selling lottery tickets, basically, and somebody can win the house, and all of that money goes to a nonprofit foundation. He set up a non-for-profit down in Nicaragua, in El Salvador area, and he's building houses, getting clean water, that kind of stuff. And he said that he doesn't even want the kickbacks from this non-for-profit. He wants to be completely broke. This is his goal. And what made him come to this conclusion was that he was in a situation in a hotel that he spent time at in Hawaii. He was there for 3 weeks in Hawaii on vacation. And he said he and his wife were there in Hawaii for 3 weeks on vacation. These are his exact words. He said, "It was the biggest shock in my life when I realized how horrible and soulless and without feeling the 5-star lifestyle is. In those 3 weeks, we spent all the money you could possibly spend. But in all that time, we had the feeling we hadn't met a single real person. That we were all just actors. The staff played the role of being friendly. The guests played the role of being important. And nobody was real." Isn't that sometimes how we go through our lives? We're so busy playing our role, being the main character, and we never have a single real interaction. Because it's all very self-serving. It's all about me. And I want to tell you something. This is something that changed my life, just these 3 words, just to come to grips with these 3 words. If I gave you 3 words that really meant a lot to me, they would be this: other people exist. Other people exist. Weird. I want to do an informal poll. I want you to be honest with yourselves. I want you to answer this poll very honestly. And I don't want you to hold back, okay? I am going to ask you to be bold and raise your hand. This is one of those kind of polls, but I want you to be very serious in how you answer this question. How many of you in this room are a person? Okay, now keep your hands up, because if you're not raising your hand, we do need to know about that. Okay, now look around. Just take a look around at all the other people. There are people who are people in this room. There are persons who are persons in this very room, and how we forget, right? We can be in a crowd full of people and forget that there's a single person near us, right? It's amazing how this works. Maybe you've done this before, but let me share something. This is kind of a personal statement here. Like this, I need to confess something to you. But this is one of the things in my life that is the biggest pet peeve I probably have. It's called stopping in public, and this kills me. Okay, so this is what happens. Maybe you've been at a mall. Maybe you've been at the farmer's market, or maybe I'm from Orlando. Maybe you've been in an amusement park where it's like packed, and you're all walking, and you've got places to get to, right? And you're all trucking along, right? And you're walking at the same pace, and you're in this crowd of people. One of the other things that I need to point out is you should always walk on the right-hand side. Please always walk on the right-hand side. Why do we have people walking on the left-hand side? Walk on the right-hand side. If you're in England, cool, walk on the left-hand side. We're in America, walk on the right-hand side. This is a life-changing message, isn't it? Okay, so I just want to make that point, by the way. So we're all walking on the right-hand side. I'm in a crowd of people. We're all walking on the right-hand side, right? And we're all trucking at about the same pace. We're at the same rate of speed, all of us, just trucking along. And we're busy. We've got stuff to get to, things to do. And then somehow, as you walk along in this crowd of people, somebody right in front of you, for no reason, they get this mandate from God, and they just stop, just dead stop right in front of you. And you've all been traveling at the same rate of speed, and all these people behind you are doing the same thing, and you're just trucking. And they're like, oh no. And then you have like a 4-person pile up, and things go horribly wrong. What is going on? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? This kills me. And it really does make me angry in my heart. Like, seriously, I have to repent after these moments happen. One time I said a cuss word in my head. Seriously, this made me angry. And I don't understand this. What is this phenomena? Like, why do people do this? And it's amazing that we can be in a crowd of people and forget that anybody else is even there. We found out just a few weeks ago that my wife is pregnant. Yes. And I have 2 goals for this child. One, if it's a creepy-looking British kid from the scary movies, they're going to boarding school indefinitely. because I am not getting murdered. I've seen the movies. Secondly, this child will know how to walk in public. I'm starting a not-for-profit for this. I'm very serious about this. This will change the world, people. But we can be in this crowd of people and forget that anybody else is even there. Isn't that amazing? That's why I enjoy, like, when I go to the mall, you know, and you, like, sit down on the bench and you watch, like, everybody walk by, and you kind of, you know, you play this game where you're people watching, and you're like, I wonder what they're thinking. I wonder where they're going. Ooh, they're walking real fast. They probably have to go to the bathroom. You know? You know how this goes, right? Apparently you guys have done this too. So, I mean, and I like doing that because it makes the crowd of people turn into individual people. You realize it's not a crowd, it's not a mob, it's a group of people. Individual people. But have you ever been in this place where you've forgotten that, like, your waitress is a person? Have you ever been there where you've forgotten that your waitress is a person too? Or your cashier is a person? Or your children? Or your parents? Or your students? Or your teachers? Or your student teachers? Or your shoe salesman, or your oral hygienist, or even Canadians. Apparently they're people too. I guess. You know? I mean, have you ever forgotten that? That these are people, and these are people with just as much conflict in their story, just as much joy in their story, just as much pain and sorrow and hurt and brokenness in their story as yours, if not more so. That they're going through the same things that you are. That they experience life the same way you do. That they have their own movie that's being made. And we forget about it all the time, don't we? There's a great piece. I have a confession for you. I listen to NPR. So I feel better now. I listen to NPR. And there's a great piece. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of This American Life. Anybody's familiar with this? Out of Chicago. And it's NPR Chicago. And a guy named Ira Glass has, like, the coolest job in the world. And he just goes around and hunts down stories, and just tells stories. It's really cool. And he went to a 5th grade teacher. This guy's name's Tom, this 5th grade teacher. And he went to this 5th grade art teacher, and they told this story. And the art teacher said that one day, his class, he had a couple boys in his class that stayed after class, a couple 5th grade boys. And they found, like, an old Kleenex box. And they found an old, like, paper towel roll and an old toilet paper roll. And they made themselves a camera. It actually looked considerably like this. My wife made this last night. The things you do as a pastor's wife. So, so now I have this. They made a camera that looked a lot like this. Paper towel roll, toilet paper roll, a Kleenex box. Now these boys took it out to the playground. And suddenly everybody wanted a camera. Everybody wanted a camera. All the kids clamoring to get a camera. So the playground was alive with cameras. And, like, the girls would make their own, and they would make theirs really pretty and pink and have little streamers. And the boys probably looked a lot like a Kleenex box and a toilet paper roll. I'm just guessing. And they made these little guys like this. And there were 2 jobs you could have while you're on the playground. You could either be an anchorman or a cameraman, but there was really nobody not playing this game on the entire playground. And everybody was running around reporting all of the important news that the 5th graders had to offer. All of the important news that 5th graders have to, all of it. It probably took a good 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, and they had all the important stories going down, and you had conflicting news sources and competing stations happening at the same time. This was a big deal. Every kid had a camera and had an anchorman, and you were running around reporting your story. Everybody had one. They said that after a couple weeks, this had gone on, and the kids were still loving this game. And one day, Tom, this art teacher, came out from the cafeteria, and the kids were out at recess. And he said that he saw a crowd of kids, just this huge crowd of kids out there with their cameras. He said, so I got closer to see what was going on. I got to the middle of the crowd, and I looked, and in the middle of the crowd are 2 boys, one on top of the other, just beating him senseless. punching him straight in the face on the concrete. And he looked around. Nobody was stepping in to help. All the kids were concerned about was getting the right shot. You have cameramen trying to get the shot, trying to zoom in at the right angle. You've got anchormen trying to report this message louder than the rest of them. And they're all screaming out what's happening inside this fight. And you got cameramen trying to get the right shot. And that's all that's happening. Nobody is stepping in to help. Nobody's doing a thing, not a soul. And the principal had to outlaw cameras and put them in a bonfire. They weren't even real. It's amazing how the camera changes us, isn't it? How I want this so squarely fixed on me that I don't care what it takes. I want this to remain in focus on me. I want to report this story. I want to be in charge of this. And I don't care who gets hurt. And I don't care what these supporting roles are. They're just a story I can tell. We fight to stay in front of the camera. We don't want to leave our story, right? There's a moment where Jesus is confronted about a similar issue, about somebody leaving their story. And this is actually one of the most famous parables, if not the most famous parable. We all know the term the Good Samaritan. This term is pretty common. We use the term Good Samaritan. It's helped out hundreds of hospital naming committees. We all know this term. I want to look at this parable. It begins in an interesting spot because Jesus is teaching, and he's in a crowd of people. Now, Jesus knows how to handle crowds of people. And he's in a crowd of people. And a man stands up, an expert in the law. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Now, this man is an expert in the law, meaning the Levitical law, meaning the Old Testament. He's an expert in this. And he says, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Now, isn't this a flattering question? What must I do? You've got Jesus who's come to earth to literally sacrifice himself and have a relationship with everybody. And what does he get? What is the bare minimum that I have to accomplish in order to qualify for this eternal life thing? This is flattering. It's no wonder this guy is an expert in the law, not an expert in compassion. And so Jesus turns to him, and I love what Jesus does. He doesn't answer his question with an answer. He answers his question with a question. "Well, what's written in the law?" He replies, "How do you read it? You're an expert in the law. You tell us. What do you think has to happen?" And the man answers, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." These are exact words that Jesus has spoken before, and he says, "Yes, you've answered correctly." He replies, "Do that, do this, and you'll live." But the man isn't done yet. It says, but he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus in front of this entire crowd, "Who is my neighbor?" Oh, no, he didn't. And again, Jesus doesn't answer his question with a 7-step program that this guy's looking for, or something like that. He answers this question with a story. He goes into a story. And in reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead." Now, what we know now is that this is a man from Jerusalem, where Jesus is at this time. So this is one of their own. The group that he's talking to, this is one of their own people. He's going from Jerusalem to Jericho. As he's going down this path, he's beaten. He's robbed. He's stripped of his clothes. He's now laying as a mess of a man in the middle of a roadway with nothing left to offer and no way to help himself out. So Jesus continues in the story. He says a priest happened to be going down the same road when he saw the man. And he saw the man, notice this, he saw the man, he's without excuse. And he saw the man, and he passed by on the other side. Now, you got to be thinking, this is a priest. This is one of their own as well. And he is a religious official. I mean, he is employed by the church. He's got to stop, right? And then he got a text message on his cellular telephone and walked right around. Right? And then the second person, the Levite. So then a Levite, same story. He came to the place and saw him and passed by again on the other side, walks completely around him, makes sure to avoid the mess of a man that's laying in the ground. Oh, look, my friends. Oh, my, see ya. And he goes right around it. Now, Levites were chosen people also, and these were people that, even as far back as Exodus, that God had trusted inside the temple. These were a chosen people by God. You would think, this is one of their own, this is a chosen person by God, he would stop. Nope. And then you've got to think, is that us? Because surely we would never do that, right? We would never have this happen to us. We would never walk right around. We would never be too involved with our own story, would we? There's a great study that Princeton Theological Seminary did on this exact thing. You may have heard of this, but there was a great study they did. And they took seminary students, seminarians, if you will. They took their seminarians and they polled them first. They said, why did you want to go into seminary? Why do you want to be a professional clergy? What makes you want to go into ministry as a profession? And without a doubt, every student said that they wanted to go into ministry because they wanted to help other people. So they set up this test, and they brought everybody into a room here, and they asked them, please create a talk, create a lesson, a teaching on the Good Samaritan in this room here. And then they were going to have them create their talk here and go to another building where they would present their teaching at this other building. So there's two buildings, and they have to go over to this other building to actually present their talk. Now, in between, there's an alleyway. There's a small alleyway. And they stationed a man in that alleyway intentionally to try this test out. Now, they wanted to see who would stop and help this man. This man is laying on the ground. They actually had like blood on him, and he is coughing and wheezing, and he looks completely homeless and tattered and broken. And he's laying on the ground between the two buildings. And the test is who would stop to help him. So the group creates their talk. All these different people have their talks on what they're going to talk about with the Good Samaritan. They've just prepared the talks. They take one half of the group and they tell them, hey, you've got plenty of time to get over there. It looks like you're a little ahead of schedule. Just take your time getting over to the other building. They told one group, you're running really late. You need to hurry. You need to hurry to get to the other building to talk, to share your teaching. The group that they told, you have plenty of time, only 63% of these people even stopped to check on the man. Of the group that they told, you're running late, only 10% stopped to even check on the man. And some of them literally stepped right over him on their way to go talk about the Good Samaritan. We wouldn't do that, right? That's not us. I can't imagine that any of us would even come into a church like this with the commons like that and walk right by or right around somebody who's calling out and needing help. And then there's a third option. There's a third option. The third option that Jesus gives us is he gives us the Samaritan. Now, this brings snickers to the crowd because they hate the Samaritans. This is a bitter, ugly rivalry of religions, and they do not like each other. There's been a falling out. And as he says Samaritan, you've got to imagine most people turn it off and think, it's over. And it says that a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and he too saw the man, this mess of a man in the road, and he took pity on him. And he bandaged his wounds. He poured oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 silver coins. Now, this is the equivalent of like 2 months' wages. 2 silver coins, and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I'll reimburse you for any extra expense you may have had. Which of these 3, he asked the expert in the law, do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell in the hands of the robbers? The expert in the law replied to him, the one who had mercy on him. Now notice that line, the one who had mercy on him. This man can't even mutter the words, the Samaritan. Can't even say it. Hurts too much. Just the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus says, go and do likewise. So here's the thing about these parables. This is what you can do with parables. This is what I like about them. Is you can take them apart. And one of the first things you can do is you can say, where do I fit into this parable? Where am I in this parable? And in this parable, where do you fit in? Are you the priest, the Levite? Are you the person who's been so consumed with your own story, with your own movie, with keeping the camera fixed squarely on yourselves that you cannot possibly go and be a supporting role in somebody else's show? Or are you the Samaritan? Are you the person who regularly has decided that you would become a supporting role in somebody else's movie rather than being the lead role in yours? Or are you the guy on the ground? Because some of you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that you come into this building week after week and you feel like you have been beaten and robbed and that you're naked and exposed and there is nothing you can do about it, and you are begging and you are pleading, please, somebody leave your movie and come be a supporting role in mine. I need a supporting character. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. The second thing you can do with a story like this is you can take it apart and say, where is Jesus in this story? Where does Jesus fit into this story? Now, in this one, I thought it was a no-brainer. I grew up assuming and believing that Jesus was obviously not the priest. He wasn't the Levite. And I assumed that Jesus was the Samaritan. But as it turns out, Jesus isn't the priest. He isn't the Levite. He isn't the Samaritan. Jesus is the guy on the ground. Jesus is the guy laying on the ground. That's because Jesus tells us in Matthew 25 that he is that guy. In Matthew 25, he says these words, "When the Son of Man comes in glory and all his angels with him, he'll sit on a throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates sheep from goats. He'll put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right." Now this is critical right here, because this is one of the few times that Jesus qualifies exactly how he's going to determine heaven and hell. There are not many places where Jesus makes this so clear as he does right here. And he makes it very clear that he will distinguish between heaven and hell based on this criteria alone, which is frightening if you take this very literally. He says, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me.' And the righteous, they're going to answer him, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you as a stranger and invite you in, or even needing clothes and clothe you? When were you sick or in prison and we visited you?' And the king will reply, 'I tell you the truth, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me.'" Jesus is the guy on the ground. And here's the deal. For you and for me, I personally do not want to get too caught up in my own movie. I am tired of being the lead character. And I don't want to miss out not just on being a supporting role in somebody else's life, but on being a supporting role in the movie of Jesus Christ. I don't want to miss out on Christ's story of love, of redemption, of grace that he is pouring out to this world. And I don't want to miss out on being a role in that movie. I don't know about you, that's a movie that I don't want to miss.